What is Zen Buddhism, the path beyond thinking? In a world overflowing with noise, distraction, and constant pressure to achieve, many people feel trapped inside their own restless minds. Anxiety rises, depression spreads, and technology amplifies every insecurity by keeping us locked in cycles of comparison and desire. Self-help books and quick-fix therapies promise relief, but few address the root of the problem: our inability to sit still, see clearly, and dwell fully in the present moment. This is where Zen Buddhism enters the picture. More than a religion, more than a philosophy, Zen is a radical practice of stripping away illusions, not by believing in doctrines or following rituals blindly, but by learning to face reality directly. Zen does not ask you to worship a god, memorize sacred verses, or wait for salvation in another world. It demands something far more difficult and far more liberating: that you drop your assumptions, observe your own mind, and wake up to life as it truly is, here and now. But Zen is also one of the most misunderstood traditions in the world. For some, it is reduced to minimalist aesthetics, haiku poetry, or trendy meditation apps. For others, it seems like an obscure Eastern philosophy too vague to grasp. Yet Zen offers real, practical solutions to the modern crises of meaning, stress, and alienation. It teaches us how to cut through the endless chatter of thought, find clarity in silence, and cultivate a way of living that is free, compassionate, and deeply grounded. I'm the roots and essence of Zen. Zen Buddhism is one of the most fascinating traditions in human history because it embodies both continuity and rebellion. It is Buddhist in origin, carrying forward the core insights of the Buddha about suffering, impermanence, and liberation. But it is also radically different from conventional Buddhism, discarding elaborate doctrines, scriptures, and rituals to return to something startlingly simple: direct experience of reality. To understand Zen, we must first trace its roots, from the ancient forests of India, through the mountains and monasteries of China, to the temples and tea houses of Japan. The historical birth of Zen, from India to China to Japan. The story begins in India around the 5th century BCE, when Siddhartha Gautama, later known as the Buddha, attained enlightenment under the Bodhi tree. His realization was not a set of abstract theories, but a practical insight into the nature of suffering and its cessation. The Buddha taught that suffering arises from craving and ignorance, and that liberation comes through a path of ethical conduct, meditation, and wisdom. For centuries after his death, his teachings spread across Asia, evolving into different schools. In India, Buddhist philosophy became increasingly elaborate, with schools like Madhyamaka exploring the profound doctrine of emptiness and Yogacara focusing on the nature of consciousness. By the early centuries CE, Buddhism had reached China along the Silk Road. There it encountered Taoism with its emphasis on naturalness, spontaneity, and living in harmony with the Tao, the ineffable way of reality. This encounter was transformative. Indian Buddhism's philosophical rigor merged with Chinese Taoism's love of simplicity, paradox, and directness. Out of this fusion emerged a new form of Buddhism, Chan, the Chinese word derived from the Sanskrit dhyana, meaning meditation. Chan was less concerned with texts and metaphysics than with lived practice. The great question was not, what do the scriptures say, but what do you see right now? Chan masters were notorious for their unconventional teaching methods. Instead of explaining doctrines, they might shout, strike their students, or pose riddles that shattered logical thought. They taught that truth could not be captured in words. It had to be realized directly in one's own experience. From China, Chan spread to Korea and Vietnam, and eventually to Japan around the 12th century, where it became known as Zen, the Japanese pronunciation of Chan. In Japan, Zen flourished, deeply influencing art, poetry, architecture, and even martial practices. Japanese Zen developed distinct schools such as Rinzai, with its emphasis on koan practice, and Soto, focused on shikantaza, or just sitting. Zen became more than a religion. It was a cultural force shaping aesthetics, ethics, and ways of life. Thus, the historical birth of Zen is a story of migration and transformation. An Indian seed planted in Chinese soil, watered by Taoist thought, and blossoming fully in Japan. The meaning of Zen and its break from conventional Buddhism. The word Zen is deceptively simple. At its root, it means meditation, pointing back to the Buddha's own practice of deep contemplative absorption. But in Zen, meditation is not just a technique, it is the heart of awakening itself. Conventional Buddhism, as it developed in many regions, often became heavily ritualized. Monks recited sutras, performed ceremonies, and engaged in scholastic debates about metaphysical doctrines. While these traditions preserved the richness of Buddhist philosophy, they risked drifting away from the immediacy of practice. Zen arose as a corrective, a rebellion against turning Buddhism into mere intellectualism or ritual. Zen's core message is, do not cling to words, ideas, or rituals. Look directly into your own mind. As one famous Zen saying goes, a special transmission outside the scriptures, not relying on words or letters, directly pointing to the human mind, seeing one's true nature and becoming Buddha. This verse, attributed to Bodhidharma, the legendary founder of Chan in China, captures the break from conventional Buddhism. While other schools leaned on canonical texts and doctrinal systems, Zen claimed that awakening could not be found in words. Words at best point toward truth, but they are not the truth itself. In this way, Zen aligns with the Buddha's original intent. The Buddha himself discouraged clinging to metaphysical speculation, focusing instead on the practical problem of suffering and its end. Zen takes this pragmatism to an extreme, stripping away everything that distracts from direct realization. Key Zen masters and their revolutionary teachings. To understand Zen's essence, it helps to meet some of the masters who embodied its spirit. These figures were not armchair philosophers, but fierce, unconventional teachers who challenged students to break free of conceptual thinking. Bodhidharma, Easter 5th of Cheese 6th century CE, the semi-mythical Indian monk credited with bringing Chan to China. He is often depicted as a fierce, bearded figure, sitting in meditation facing a wall for 9 years. Bodhidharma emphasized meditation as the direct path to awakening and rejected mere reliance on scriptures. When the Chinese Emperor Wu, who had built temples and supported Buddhism, asked him what merit he had gained, Bodhidharma famously replied, "No merit." With this shocking answer, he cut through the emperor's attachment to religious works, pointing to the emptiness of all constructs. Huineng, 638-713 CE, the sixth patriarch of Chan, Huineng came from humble origins, an illiterate woodcutter who attained awakening upon hearing a single line of the Diamond Sutra, "Abide nowhere and awaken the mind." His platform sutra became a foundational text for Chan, teaching sudden enlightenment, that awakening is not a gradual accumulation, but an immediate recognition of one's true nature. Huineng rejected rigid rituals and argued that the essence of Buddhism lay in direct realization, not in external forms. Linji Yixuan, d. 866 CE, founder of the Linji Rinzai in Japanese school, Linji was known for his explosive teaching style. He shouted "cats" or struck students with a staff to jolt them into awareness. His aim was to disrupt ordinary thinking, forcing students to leap beyond concepts. He declared, "If you meet the Buddha on the road, kill him." A shocking statement meant to free students from clinging to even the image of the Buddha. Dogen, 1200-1253, a Japanese monk who traveled to China and brought back the teachings that became the Soto school of Zen. Dogen emphasized shikantaza, just sitting, a form of meditation without striving for enlightenment. For Dogen, practice and realization were not separate. Sitting itself was awakening. His masterpiece, Shobogenzo, is a vast poetic exploration of Zen teachings, blending philosophy and practical guidance. These masters embodied Zen's refusal to be tamed by doctrine. Their revolutionary teachings were not about constructing systems, but about breaking them down, pushing students to encounter life directly. Zen philosophy, emptiness, no self, and direct experience. At its core, Zen inherits the central Buddhist insights of emptiness and no self, but it interprets them in a uniquely practical and experiential way. Emptiness, shunyata. This is the realization that all things are interdependent and lack fixed, independent essence. Nothing exists in isolation. Everything arises through causes and conditions. Zen takes this teaching not as an abstract idea, but as an invitation to see directly that our thoughts, identities, and problems are fluid, not solid. When you cling to them as permanent, you suffer. When you see their emptiness, you are free. No self, anatta. The Buddha taught that the self we cling to is an illusion, a bundle of processes rather than a fixed entity. Zen emphasizes experiencing this directly through meditation. In the stillness of zazen, the boundaries of I and world dissolve, revealing a non-dual awareness where self and other are not separate. Direct experience. Perhaps Zen's most distinctive feature is its radical focus on direct experience over conceptualization. To think about emptiness is not the same as realizing it. To study no self is not the same as experiencing the dissolution of ego in meditation. Zen insists on direct pointing. The finger pointing at the moon is not the moon itself. Words and doctrines are fingers. Experience is the moon. This is why Zen is filled with paradoxes and koans. They are tools to break the mind's reliance on logic and push one toward a direct glimpse of reality beyond words. Why Zen rejects dogma and clings to nothing. One of the most liberating and also most bewildering aspects of Zen is its rejection of dogma. While many religions build elaborate belief systems, Zen says, do not cling even to Zen. Do not make Buddha into an idol. Do not turn teachings into rigid truths. This rejection is rooted in the very problem Buddhism seeks to solve: clinging. The Buddha taught that craving and attachment cause suffering. Zen applies this insight ruthlessly, even to Buddhist teachings themselves. If you cling to the doctrine of emptiness, you are still attached. If you cling to meditation practice as a means to an end, you are still bound. True freedom comes only when you let go of all clinging, even to the idea of letting go. Thus, Zen is sometimes described as a pathless path. It provides tools, meditation, koans, guidance, but warns against mistaking the tools for the truth. The goal is not to construct a system of beliefs, but to wake up to reality as it is. This radical stance explains why Zen has been both revered and misunderstood. To some, it seems too vague, too dismissive of tradition, but to those who practice sincerely, it offers a clarity and freedom unmatched by rigid systems. 2. Zen in Practice, the Way Beyond Words. If Part 1 revealed the roots and essence of Zen, Part 2 is about what Zen actually looks like when lived. Zen has always emphasized practice over theory, action over speculation. Its teachings insist that no amount of intellectual study can substitute for direct experience. To understand Zen is not to read about Zen, but to sit, breathe, and live it in each moment. In this section, we explore the central practices of Zen: Zazen meditation, koans, paradoxical riddles, the art of bringing mindfulness into everyday tasks, the cultivation of Zen arts, and the discipline of presence that teaches us how to live without attachment. Together, these form a holistic way of being that embodies Zen's radical insight. Awakening is not elsewhere. It is right here, in this very moment. Zazen, seated meditation as the heart of Zen. At the core of Zen lies Zazen, literally seated meditation. Unlike other forms of meditation that aim for concentration, visualization, or altered states, Zazen is remarkably simple, and yet profoundly difficult. It is, in the words of Zen Master Dogen, the Dharma gate of great ease and joy, but also a discipline that demands courage, patience, and humility. In Zazen, the practitioner sits upright, often on a cushion, zafu, with legs crossed in the lotus or half-lotus position, hands folded in the cosmic mudra, and eyes half open. The breath is natural, not forced. Thoughts come and go, but the practitioner does not cling to them or push them away. The instruction is simple: just sit. This simplicity is deceptive. For beginners, sitting in silence often brings restlessness, boredom, or discomfort. The mind races, planning the future, replaying the past, resisting stillness. Zazen is not about suppressing these thoughts, but about observing them with awareness, allowing them to rise and fall like waves. Over time, the practice reveals the impermanent, insubstantial nature of thoughts, and the practitioner learns to rest in the open space of awareness itself. Dogen describes Zazen not as a means to enlightenment, but as enlightenment itself. For him, practice and realization were inseparable. To sit wholeheartedly, without striving for results, is already to express the awakened mind. This radical teaching challenges the common assumption that meditation is a tool to get somewhere. Zen says, "You are already there. Sit and see. Modern science has begun to confirm the transformative power of Zazen. Studies on Zen meditators show changes in brain structure, reduced stress, improved emotional regulation, and enhanced attention. But for Zen, these benefits are side effects. The true aim is not to gain something, but to awaken to the reality that nothing was lacking in the first place. Koan's paradoxes that shatter logical thinking. If Zazen is the still heart of Zen, koans are its lightning bolts. A koan is a paradoxical story, question, or statement used by Zen masters to break the grip of rational thought and force students into direct experience. One of the most famous is, Wetter, what is the sound of one hand clapping? At first glance, such questions seem nonsensical. Our logical minds search for answers but find none. This is precisely the point. The koan is designed to exhaust the intellect, to short-circuit ordinary thinking, so that a deeper, intuitive understanding can emerge. Koans originated in the Chan tradition of China and flourished in the Japanese Rinzai school. Masters would assign students a koan as a meditation object, and the student would present their answer in a private interview. Dokusan. The answer was not a clever explanation, but a demonstration of realization, often expressed in a gesture, a shout, or a silence. For example, consider this exchange. A monk asked Master Zhao Zhou, "Does a dog have Buddha nature?" Zhao Zhou replied, "Mu," which means no or not. This one word has been meditated on by countless practitioners for centuries. It is not an intellectual puzzle, but a doorway into awakening, a way of cutting through conceptual dualities to the living truth beyond yes and no. Koans can be frustrating, even infuriating, because they deny the comfort of logical answers. Yet they mirror life itself. Reality often refuses to fit into neat categories. By wrestling with a koan, the student learns to let go of rigid concepts and open to direct experience. The essence of Zen. Everyday Zen, mindfulness in ordinary tasks. Zen is not confined to the meditation cushion or the interview room. Its genius lies in bringing practice into the fabric of daily life. As the saying goes, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. This phrase captures Zen's insight that awakening is not about escaping ordinary life, but about living it with full presence. Every activity, cooking, cleaning, walking, speaking, can become Zen practice when done with awareness. In Zen monasteries, monks are trained to approach even the simplest tasks with care. Washing rice, sweeping the floor, or arranging flowers are not chores but opportunities to express mindfulness. Dogen wrote extensively about the practice of the cook, Tenzo Kyokan, emphasizing that preparing food with attention and compassion is as profound as any meditation. For lay practitioners, everyday Zen might mean eating slowly, savoring each bite, or listening deeply in conversation without distraction. It could mean walking without rushing, noticing the sensation of each step. In a modern world obsessed with speed and multitasking, this return to simple presence is revolutionary. Everyday Zen teaches that enlightenment is not something separate from daily life. It is found in the way you wash a bowl, the way you answer the phone, the way you breathe. Zen arts, calligraphy, tea, martial practice, gardens, poetry. One of Zen's most visible contributions to culture is its influence on the arts. In Japan especially, Zen shaped aesthetics that continue to inspire the world. The graceful simplicity of a tea ceremony, the bold strokes of calligraphy, the serene design of rock gardens, and the disciplined practice of martial arts. Calligraphy, Shodo. In Zen calligraphy, the brush becomes an extension of the mind. Each stroke must be executed with complete presence. Hesitation or distraction shows immediately. The aim is not perfection, but expression of the moment. A single circle, enso, drawn in ink, can embody emptiness, completeness, and freedom. Tea ceremony, chanoyu. The Japanese tea ceremony, deeply influenced by Zen, is a ritual of simplicity, harmony, and mindfulness. Every movement, from boiling water to whisking matcha, is performed with attention. Guests and host alike are invited to be fully present, to savor the taste of tea as if it were the whole universe in a cup. Martial arts, e.g. kendo, kyudo, aikido. Zen infused the training of warriors with a focus on presence and no mind, mushin. In archery kyudo, the goal is not to hit the target, but to release the arrow without ego, in a state of unity with Tao, breath, and space. This discipline of letting go transforms combat into a spiritual practice. Gardens, Zen gardens, with their raked gravel, stones, and sparse plants, embody simplicity and emptiness. They invite contemplation, not through abundance, but through space. Looking at a Zen garden is like entering a koan. The silence speaks louder than words. Poetry, haiku. Haiku, influenced by Zen sensibility, captures fleeting moments with radical simplicity. 17 syllables might reveal an entire universe. Basho's famous haiku, an old pond, a frog jumps in, the sound of water, embodies the Zen spirit of presence and immediacy. Through these arts, Zen extends beyond the monastery, teaching people to embody mindfulness, simplicity, and beauty in creative expression. The discipline of presence, living without attachment. Ultimately, all Zen practice points to one thing: the discipline of presence. Whether sitting in zazen, grappling with a koan, sweeping the floor, or drinking tea, the essence is to be fully present, without clinging or resistance. This is not a passive state, but an active discipline. The mind constantly wants to escape into past regrets, future worries, fantasies, or judgments. Zen practice trains us to notice these escapes and return to the present moment again and again. Living without attachment does not mean indifference. On the contrary, it means engaging life fully without being bound by it. To enjoy a flower without needing it to last, to love a person without clinging to possess them, to work diligently without tying your worth to success or failure. Zen describes this as freedom. Freedom from the tyranny of thought, from the illusions of ego, from the suffering caused by craving and aversion. It is a freedom that allows one to live with clarity, compassion, and joy, regardless of circumstances. In this way, Zen practice is not an escape from the world, but a way of living more fully in it. The discipline of presence becomes a path to liberation, not in some distant realm, but right here, in the midst of chopping vegetables, answering emails, or sitting quietly with the breath. 30. A Zen for a Troubled World, Solutions for Humanity. Zen Buddhism is often seen as a quiet, personal practice. A monk sitting in stillness, a brushstroke across paper, a rock garden raked at dawn. But Zen is more than a personal retreat from the world's noise. It is a way of engaging life so directly, so honestly, that it has the potential to transform not just individuals, but societies. In an age marked by mental health crises, alienation, consumerism, ecological collapse, and spiritual confusion, Zen offers not abstract doctrines, but practical ways of living that address our most urgent problems. In this final part, we will explore how Zen can serve as a solution for humanity, starting with the crises of modernity, then turning to how Zen intersects with psychology, society, and ecology. We will also confront the dangers of commercialization and superficiality in Western Zen, before imagining a Zen-inspired future of freedom, clarity, and compassion. The crisis of modernity, mental health, alienation, consumerism. Our world has achieved extraordinary technological progress, but this has not translated into peace of mind. Rates of anxiety, depression, and stress are skyrocketing. Loneliness is described by researchers as an epidemic. Consumerism promises happiness through possessions, yet leaves people feeling emptier the more they chase. Alienation from community, nature, and even from oneself has become the defining mark of modern life. This crisis is not just psychological, but spiritual. People feel cut off from meaning, from belonging, from the sense that life is more than survival or consumption. Traditional religions often fail to provide satisfying answers, appearing either rigidly dogmatic or out of step with modern science and values. Secular culture, meanwhile, tends to offer only distractions, entertainment, shopping, scrolling, that numb the symptoms but do not cure the disease. Zen speaks directly to this crisis. It identifies the restless, grasping mind as the source of suffering. It shows that chasing after pleasure or status cannot resolve the inner sense of lack. And it offers not a belief to adopt, but a practice to embody. Sit, breathe, observe, awaken to what is already here. Zen reframes modern crises not as unique to our age, but as extensions of the universal human problem, attachment and ignorance. Its promise is not to eliminate suffering magically, but to transform our relationship to it, allowing us to live with clarity and compassion in the midst of impermanence. Zen and psychology, transforming the restless mind. In the past century, psychology has increasingly converged with insights long taught in Zen. Practices like mindfulness, once obscure, are now mainstream in therapy, stress reduction, and neuroscience. Zen's direct attention to the workings of the mind offers profound tools for healing mental distress. The restless mind, constantly spinning with thoughts, is the root of much anxiety and depression. Zen trains us to observe thoughts without clinging. In Zazen, thoughts are like clouds drifting through a vast sky. They are not denied, but they are no longer masters. This shift is deeply therapeutic. It loosens the identification with every passing worry or self-judgment. Koans, too, have psychological power. They destabilize the rigid frameworks of thought that trap us in suffering. When a student confronts the impossibility of a koan like, "What is your original face before your parents were born?" the mind's grip on identity and narrative loosens, opening space for a freer sense of self. Modern psychology has validated Zen practices. Mindfulness-based cognitive therapy reduces relapse and depression. Meditation reduces stress, increases resilience, and fosters emotional regulation. But Zen pushes further than therapy. It does not merely seek a healthier ego, but a liberation from ego's illusions altogether. Thus, Zen offers psychology both a practical toolkit and a radical horizon, the possibility of transcending the restless mind itself. Zen in society, compassion, simplicity, and nonviolence. Zen is often portrayed as solitary, but its implications for society are profound. A person who awakens to emptiness and knows self naturally sees the interdependence of all beings. This insight gives rise to compassion. Zen ethics are not based on commandments imposed from outside, but on the direct realization that harming others is harming oneself, since there is no fixed boundary between self and world. From this flows a natural orientation toward nonviolence, simplicity, and service. Historically, Zen monks have embodied simplicity in their lifestyles. Plain robes, minimal possessions, communal living. This simplicity is not ascetic denial, but freedom from the compulsions of consumerism. In today's world, embracing simplicity is not only a path to personal clarity, but also a counterforce to the destructive excess of consumer society. Compassion is expressed not in abstract ideals, but in concrete action, caring for the sick, feeding the hungry, teaching the ignorant. Zen's great teachers often emphasize humility. Enlightenment is meaningless if it does not manifest in kindness toward others. Applied socially, Zen encourages dialogue instead of conflict, cooperation instead of competition, and structures that value being over having. In workplaces, Zen-inspired leadership emphasizes presence, listening, and ethical clarity. In education, it fosters attention and openness rather than rote memorization. In this way, Zen offers a vision of society not based on endless growth and consumption, but on mindful presence, compassion, and sustainable simplicity. Zen and ecology, living in harmony with the earth. One of the gravest crises humanity faces is ecological collapse, climate change, species extinction, pollution, and destruction of ecosystems. Much of this stems from the same restless craving that Zen diagnoses in individuals, the endless desire to consume, control, and dominate. Zen offers an ecological ethic grounded in interdependence. To see emptiness is to see that nothing exists in isolation. The tree, the air, the water, and the human are inseparable. This view naturally fosters respect for nature, not as a resource to exploit, but as an extension of oneself. Zen's simplicity also aligns with ecological sustainability. By reducing unnecessary desires, by living with mindfulness and gratitude, we consume less and waste less. The Zen garden is a model. Beauty is found not in excess, but in harmony, balance, and emptiness. Furthermore, Zen practice cultivates patience and stillness, countering the frantic pace that drives ecological exploitation. It invites us to dwell with the earth rather than extract from it, to listen to its rhythms rather than impose our own. In this sense, Zen provides not only a spiritual but a practical framework for ecological healing. To consume mindfully, to live simply, and to recognize the sacredness of the earth in every breath. The challenge of Western Zen, avoiding commercialization and superficiality. As Zen has spread to the West, it has gained popularity, but also faced distortion. In some places, Zen has been reduced to a brand of exotic aesthetics, minimalist decor, Zen gardens in shopping malls, or slogans about Zen and the art of business. Mindfulness has sometimes been stripped of its ethical and spiritual depth, sold as a productivity tool. This commercialization risks hollowing Zen of its radical core. Zen is not about stress relief alone. It is about confronting the emptiness of self and clinging. It is not about decorating a home in minimal style. It is about stripping the mind of illusions. Another challenge is cultural appropriation without understanding. Zen cannot be transplanted whole without adaptation, but it must retain its essence, the discipline of practice, the rejection of dogma, and the commitment to compassion. Western Zen communities must guard against superficiality, ensuring that Zen remains a living practice and not a consumer trend. This means emphasizing rigorous zazen, authentic teacher-student relationships, and integration of ethics with meditation. It also means avoiding the idolization of Zen as superior to other traditions. True Zen, as the masters taught, clings to nothing, not even to Zen itself. Toward a Zen-inspired future, freedom, clarity, and global awakening. What would a Zen-inspired future look like? Not a world where everyone becomes a monk, but one where the principles of Zen, presence, compassion, simplicity, interdependence, shape how we live and relate. On the individual level, this means people cultivating the discipline of presence, transforming mental suffering into clarity, and living with freedom from compulsive desire. On the social level, it means communities grounded in compassion rather than competition, economies oriented towards sustainability rather than endless growth, and politics rooted in dialogue rather than division. On the ecological level, it means humanity living as part of the earth rather than apart from it. Zen does not promise utopia, nor does it erase conflict and suffering, but it offers tools for facing them with equanimity and wisdom. Its greatest gift is a vision of freedom, the freedom to live fully in each moment without attachment to self, possessions, or rigid views. Albert Einstein once said that a religion that could align with science and modern values would be a cosmic religion of the future. Zen, though not seeking to be a religion in the conventional sense, points towards such a vision, a way of awakening that is empirical, experiential, compassionate, and universal. In a world desperate for clarity and connection, Zen offers not escape, but engagement. Not dogma, but practice. Not answers, but presence. And perhaps this is what humanity needs most, to wake up here and now to the reality that has always been waiting, simple, vast, and free.